Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm really excited today with our guest. I'm excited about what she's doing and how she's showing up in the world and in business. And I think you're going to want to make sure that you have a pen and paper, because I can guarantee you're going to want to write down some of the great strategies she's going to share. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Caitey Gilchrist is an award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, and creative for life. As the founder of a successful brand strategy business, Caitey has built kick-butt brands for a wide range of companies and entrepreneurs, including coaches, marketers, financial advisors, and more. And with clients raving about her thoughtfulness and breadth of knowledge, Caitey is passionate about helping businesses and individuals uncover their authentic brand identities. She's dedicated to connecting human beings to their purpose, power, and people, and empowers entrepreneurs to use their core message to create freedom in their lives and businesses. And I just love that. And thank you so much for being here with me today, Caitey.
I'm really excited to be here too, Patty. Thank you.
Yes, and I just love it. So let's just jump right in. So how would you define brand? Because I absolutely know that people get all caught up in thinking that brand means their logo and their colors and that kind of stuff. And you and I both know that it's really not. So let's just start right up front with really telling people what is the true definition of brand. Then we can go into branding, but brand and branding are not the same thing. So let's start there.
Sure. So your brand is really just a collection of assets that represents who you are in your business. So that's really what a brand is. It's just a collection of things that say, well, this is who I am. Branding is really about taking everything that you are and applying that to those assets. So it's really about personifying your business in a way. It's about giving those human qualities to something that would otherwise just be a collection of products and services so that you can really make a deeper connection with people.
I really love that, because I feel like for me, when I'm talking to people all the time, I'm always telling them, once you get to your branding and you have a strategy, you really need to use your voice and have your voice be congruent and relevant and consistent across all your social media channels, all your platform. But most importantly, you need to know what your brand is first. And what I always like to say is you don't even get to decide what your brand is. Your customer gets to decide what your brand is, right? And I think that's really important. You may have an idea what you want it to be, but your brand is really about what people say about you when you're not even in the room.
Yeah, for sure. You bring up a really good point too, because there's the brand that we think we're projecting, and then there's the brand that everybody else sees. And so my goal as a brand strategist is to help you match those two together as closely as possible. So what you're putting out is what your audience is actually hearing and seeing and perceiving.
Which I think is really important and key to your success, because nothing makes someone not want to buy than when they're confused. They're like, what exactly is it? And I think that one of the things that people should think about is, have you ever had anybody introduce you, and then after they introduce you, you thought, why did they introduce me like that? Like, it wasn't like what you would want them to introduce you. And that's really key for you to be thinking, oh, that's what they thought. So are you really clear in your messaging and using your voice effectively and really showing up authentically? And I love that you use the word authentic there, because I think it's really an important message. And I think it's really important for people to know that that's what they need to do. And I have to tell you, Caitey, one of the things I really loved about looking at your website and kind of seeing how you show up is really talking about vulnerability in your brand story. I think a lot of times people think that they have to be this best version of themselves, which is good. We do want you to show up and be your best version of yourself, but it didn't say anything about being your perfect version. And we all know that you're not. And not only that, but nobody's going to want to hire somebody that they think is perfect because they know they're not perfect either. So really allowing that vulnerability. So can we talk a little bit about where and how to do it effectively by being vulnerable in your brand story?
Yes, I love that question. So I think one of the greatest places to start is actually by discovering the why behind your business. That's where you get the juiciest stuff that's going to really tap into your vulnerable side. So what I mean by that, if anyone's unfamiliar, is really answering the question, why am I doing this in my business? Like, why is this so important to me? And a lot of times entrepreneurs go to the default answer of, well, I just want to run a successful business and have more freedom in my life. But I think that every entrepreneur has a deep down burning why for, why they're actually in business. That story that you have burning inside of you that caused you to choose this line of work or to gravitate towards this particular customer base, those stories right there can be chock full of vulnerability. And so that's where I encourage entrepreneurs to start first, is looking to your own personal story and finding out, what was hard about that, or what was really exciting about that, and infusing a little bit of that into your marketing. So into your social media posts or blog posts, don't be afraid to bring a little bit of the personal side into it too, and remind people of why this is so important. Because when we can help people understand why it's important to us, we can help them understand why it should be important to them too. Because your customers, at the end of the day, they don't really care whether you sell more products, services, or solutions, or make a big payroll or whatever. They care that you're solving a problem for them and that you've been there and that you get it. And so if you can bridge that connection authentically, that's going to be really powerful. So really infusing it anywhere where you're making that touch point with your audience is going to be very powerful.
I think that's really important because we're really about building relationships. And I really believe that relationships are the currency in today's business environment. So if it is, I read somewhere on your site where you said, embrace your quirks and flaws to make a deeper connection. And I really thought about that. I think it's actually even kind of profound because people want to hide that stuff. They just think that, oh no, nobody wants to see that. But I actually think they do, because they're going to look at you and think, wow, if you have these quirks and these flaws, and with all that, you've managed to do X, Y, Z, then you can probably help me to do it as well. Nobody wants to hire somebody who they think is perfect, because they know they're not perfect. So I think that's really important. So can you share a little bit about that? So what do you really mean when you say embrace your quirks and flaws? Like embracing it into your brand? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So first of all, there's this strange misperception that we want to work with people that have it all together because, they're going to take care of us the best. If they've never made a mistake, they've found all the success, then they're going to take care of us well. But you touched on it, Patty. That's not what we really want. As human beings, we are constantly looking for ourselves in other people. We're looking for that reflection back to ourselves. And so if you can connect with people on a very, very human level, that's going to just build that connection. It's going to make you more memorable. And by making you more memorable, the next time they're faced with that problem again, they're going to think of you and come to you first. And so by embracing your flaws and your quirks, I mean things like admitting to the time that you made that big whopping mistake and telling people what you learned from it so that they can learn from it too. And by quirks, I'm talking about those unique things that make you you, those crazy hobbies that you have and things of that nature. I know in my branding, I share a lot about my hiking adventures and stuff like that, and board games. And it's just about finding as many ways as possible as really helping you look human, because you are human, and finding common ground. This is a huge point, is finding common ground with people. And it's really hard to do that when you are coming across as completely perfect, because as you mentioned, we aren't perfect and we shouldn't be perfect. So really just looking at what makes you you, what makes you excited and passionate and raring to go every day, and how can you infuse that naturally into your marketing and your branding.
I have a friend and he teaches about LinkedIn. And his name's Phil Gerbershak. He's amazing. And one of the things that he shared on this class he was teaching once was that even in your profiles, in your bios and your profiles, to say something about that too. And one of the things that I thought was funny is he told me that in his profile headline even on LinkedIn, he put that he's a pinball wizard, which I thought was so funny. But he said, Patty, you would not believe how many people connect with me that say, oh, I just love that. Like, it made him seem so real, right? That he wasn't just this expert, that he was a real person who liked to do real things. And I think that really does make a difference. And I find that in marketing as well, that people really want to pay when somebody can help them shorten their learning curve. And how you help someone shorten their learning curve is by telling them what not to do, which I think is just as important as learning what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You need to understand both of them, right? And I think that's where the human element comes in a lot is, again, we think that people just need to see all the shiny, fancy parts that we've done really successfully, but they need to know that you've gone through the trenches as well. And so I love that. And I love that idea of pinball wizard in the LinkedIn profile too. I think that's a great tip that a lot of people could very easily incorporate. What is your top hobby? What is that thing that you do very openly in the world that you haven't really thought about bringing into business yet that you'd like to? And little things like that, like your LinkedIn profile or your tagline or even your about page on your website. That's one thing that I see a lot of entrepreneurs missing out on is they think that any opportunity to describe who they are, it's just, these are my credentials, this is my history, these are the services. But when you can throw in a little bit of personality and really what makes you you, that's, again, that another opportunity for connection. So I love that.
And I also think too, that a lot of times when people introduce themselves and they say, oh, I do this, 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 I mean, really, we could just lay out this whole thing, but that's just what you do. It's not who you are. And I always like to focus on who someone is. And so a lot of times when people will say to me, oh, Patty, oh my gosh, you publish a magazine, you have this, and you do this, and you do this. And I'm like, that's what I do. Who I am at my core, though, is that I'm a people connector. That's the core of who I actually really am. So I think it is very important to be able to share. And I have to tell you, on a personal level, I've had so many people connect with me when they read on my profile when I say, oh, I love shoes, I love coffee, I love to travel, I love my puppies, and I love dark chocolate. Those are all like my favorite things. And people will connect with me because they're like, oh my gosh, I love that too. And I love this and I love that. And now you have someplace to start in that conversation as you're building that relationship. And I think that's really very, very important. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. So I love it. So now you said something earlier that I really want to talk about, which is really finding what to do and what not to do, right? So I think sometimes it is really just as important to know what not to do. So what are some of the biggest branding pitfalls you think that people have made, or some myths about branding, or some mistakes that you see? Let's talk about some of those things.
Yes, I love it. And I love it too, because these are mistakes that I will admit I have actually made in my own business. So I can attest to their ferocity and to their solutions as well. So one of the number one big mistakes I feel a lot of entrepreneurs make that they fall into is they focus so hard on increasing their reach and getting more people in their network and, being as loud as possible, but they forget to actually hone in their message first. And this causes a lot of problems because we could be the loudest person in the room and have everyone's attention. But if what we're saying is just absolute nonsense, then it's not going to actually bring in any customers. You're not going to serve them in any way. And so that is a big, big pitfall that I see is the race to get out as far as possible without first looking inward and saying, what do I want to be known for? What is my why in my business? What is that big vision that I have? And so that's probably the biggest one that I see over and over again is not taking the time to master your message.
That's a good one. What are some others?
So another one is really about, we've touched on a little bit, it's really about authenticity. So one thing that I've seen lots of times, and I did this early in my stages of business as well, is I looked at what everybody else was doing and I kind of just mimicked what they were doing because it looks like it's working for them. It looks like it's making them successful. Why don't I adopt that strategy? And looking to others for inspiration is a fantastic strategy, but you need to be able to hone your own authentic voice and your own authentic strategy to really make that work. And the funny thing is that just because it looks like it's being successful for people doesn't mean it actually is successful, because we never know behind the scenes really how those companies are doing or if they're struggling. Nobody's going to announce on social media like, hey, I've been posting like 3 times a day for a year and nothing has changed, right? So you need to really take the time to hone your own authentic strategy using your own voice, and don't rely completely on what everybody else seems to be doing. You need to carve out your own niche really to stand out and to find something that's sustainable for your business too. So that's another one. And then the third one that I'll share with you, Patty, is about timing. One mistake a lot of entrepreneurs seem to make is they get hung up in perfectionism. So they say to me, well, I can't launch my website until I have my logo, and I can't do my logo until I've gotten XYZ in order. And the cycle continues and continues and continues. But when it comes to branding, sooner is way better than later. And now is better than soon. Because the thing is that branding is not a short-term strategy. It is a long-term game that follows your business throughout its entire history. And so the earlier you can start, the better. And so my tip around that is don't get too hung up on making it perfect, because one thing I find with a lot of entrepreneurs is, in an ideal world, we'd have all our set salesperson and our set brand strategist and our customer service person. But what I find is a lot of entrepreneurs are wearing multiple hats. They're having to do a lot of other things. Plus, they're also a mom or a dad, or they're helping their relatives, or maybe they have another job on the side. And so really don't get hung up on making everything perfect. Do what you can in the beginning and know that your brand will evolve and change with you. I guarantee that what you do for your brand right now is not going to be the same as what it looks like 10, 15, 20 years down the road. It's always going to be evolving and changing. And so give yourself a little bit of leeway and just get started. Don't wait to get yourself branded. Just start now. So those are my top tips for entrepreneurs out there.
I love that. And so one of the things that I want to talk about are brand elements, right? So a lot of times people really get hung up on that, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things, though, is while I agree that we shouldn't get hung up on that, I will also say that now it could just be that I'm in marketing, but when I am looking at people's social media posts and just kind of looking at the different things they do, I mean, we're in a visual world right now. Mm-hmm. One of the things that is my pet peeve, I'll share my pet peeve if you'll share yours. So my pet peeve is like when I go to somebody's Instagram, or I'm especially like in the real visual space, and every single one has like a different font. And mm-hmm. I mean, there's just no whereby of it. I mean, they just like pick different things that they just want to do. And, this day it's orange and this day it's blue. Mm-hmm. I could even live with that. But the font thing for me is just, oh my gosh, that is because sometimes the font really honestly does not really match the brand they're trying to say. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a pet peeve for me, to be totally honest. I want you to share your pet peeve because I really do want to know. But what are some of the key brand elements that you think that they need to have in place to be able to really connect to their best customers?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So the number one element that you need to have in place before you even consider the fonts and the logos and stuff is your message. Oh my goodness, it's so important, because your message is actually going to influence everything from your fonts to your logo to your social media posts to everything that you put out there. So number one is know your message. Then, and only then, after you've mastered what your message is, you can move on to what I call the visual identity. So those are things like your logo, which is important, and a typeface or two typefaces maximum that actually represent what your brand is trying to say, and some kind of visually appealing aesthetics that can actually be used consistently. So those two things are really important. And then the third element that I'll share is you really need to be able to have that consistent experience for people across all of your platforms. So one thing that I'd recommend that a lot of people don't have is actually a brand guide. So this is the thing that's going to keep everything in order and make sure you're being consistent. So this is essentially a rule book for your brand. So it's the thing that tells you which fonts to use on social media, or how to use your logo, or what voice to use. So that's really, really important. And one other thing I'll throw in there is actually having a professional headshot is really important as well. Because if you're not going to be putting your logo on everything and you want to be more personal, which I encourage you to do, make sure that you at least have something that represents you within the last few years up there, not just using like a selfie for everything that you're doing. Have at least that one headshot that you've got that captures your personality and still brings that level of professionalism to what you're doing as well. So those are a few of my favorites.
What's your pet peeve?
Sure. Okay. So my pet peeve would probably be, you know what? It's got to be, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, Patty, but it's got to be the excuses that come up when it comes to branding. A lot of people I've met are just like, you know what? I can't work on my branding until I've got more customers. I can't work on my branding until I've got more cash flow. I can't work on my branding until I have my website up. But what they don't realize is your branding can actually help you with those things. And so that's probably one of my pet peeves is really like not being able to see that your brand is going to help you reach more people and make those connections and make more money and all of that. So that's probably my number one.
Okay, I'm going to reframe my question a little bit. So,
Sure.
I mean, we're being our authentic self right now. And I totally get it because I know for me, I love, love, love Georgia font. And I just think it's nice and clean. It's a little bit bigger and I just really love it. And I do everything in Georgia font in my email, etc. But when I was rebranding this year, I just didn't feel like it fit my brand. So I'm being authentic. I didn't feel like it fit my brand for somebody who owns a marketing and media company to be using free fonts. I don't know why I felt that way, but for whatever reason, I just did. And so when I hired someone, I said, this is what I love, but I don't want a free font. I want to buy a font that's going to be my font. And so, you know, she pretty much took all that into consideration and then found a font for me. And I really like it and I use it. But it's kind of funny, like how we'll get into like those things that could have actually kind of gotten my own way. But I really feel comfortable with my font. But then here's the thing that's so funny about it. Would you believe, I know it's really hard. It's so fun. But if somebody looked at my logo, and my logo has my signature. And I got to tell you, Caitey, you would not, if I had $1 for every time somebody wrote to me and said, Patty, did you know that your signature in your logo, that you don't capitalize the P and the F in your name? Like they tell me that. They'll write to me to say that. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like I know I never noticed that I didn't do that my own signature, right? And so I laugh because I actually signed my name without capitalizing the P and the F in my personal life either, just because when I was growing up, I just didn't like a capital P. I just thought it was ugly. And a capital F isn't that cute either, to be totally honest. And so I have always signed my name with a lowercase P and F, just sized bigger. So the size of it was bigger, but it was actually a lowercase rather than a capital. I've done it my whole life. Even my maiden name started with an F. And so it was just really easy for me. But people actually will notice it and they'll write to me to tell me that. And I laugh. So when I did my signature, when I was doing my logo, literally we couldn't find a font that matched. And the girl who was doing my branding just said, well, why don't you just write your signature? And I didn't want to do my real signature, obviously for obvious reasons, security and all that stuff. But I did care about the P and the F. So we actually made it with my P and my F and then used font for the other. And so it is totally me. And now I notice it in everybody else's brand. So I really, really notice that. So I find that things that are important to us are sometimes a thing we notice, which is like a whole story that I just told you to get to the reframe question. So here's the question. What is something that you see, since this is what you do, right? Because I know I notice everybody's marketing, kind of like a hairdresser notices everybody's hair, right? So what do you notice? What's the thing you notice? This is what I really meant by pet peeve. What's the thing that you notice when you see other people's brand that makes you cringe when you see it and you think, oh, I would just really love to work with them because you just see them doing something that you just know isn't serving them?
I understand what you mean now. For me, the pet peeve is probably just a lack of consistency. I know you mentioned it with the fonts, but I mean this even with the types of, say, posts that people are putting out. I see it's a lot of, it almost like looks like they've got like a list of things that they need to post, and then they just kind of make it every day. So what I'm talking about here is the social media pages, for example, that are just posting about a deal, and then they're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do some crazy personal thing over here. Whereas I believe that you should be infusing that throughout everything that you're doing. So that lack of consistency in voice is huge pet peeve of mine, because I go and I look at these brands and I'm like, well, what are you trying to tell me? Who are you? Why should I connect with you? And what makes you different? Because right now you just sound like every other person who's out there. And so that's probably one of my big pet peeves.
That's a good one too. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how would you say, can you give us a couple little tips or strategies? How would you attract your ideal clients using your brand and building brand loyalty?
Well, there are many, many different pieces to this, Patty, and actually I do have a masterclass that covers this, but really what has to start with is your message. You need to know what your message is before you even start attracting people in. And so you need to be able to determine what is your purpose behind your brand, what is the big vision that you have for the world, and very, very important is what are your values. Now, this is something that is absolutely key that I think a lot of entrepreneurs miss, is that your values are actually one of the biggest ways of connecting your brand to your audience. Because we want to work with like-minded people who, if they don't share our values completely, at least respect our values. And so you need to know what yours are personally so that you can connect to clients who share those values. I think that's one pitfall that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, is they work so hard on, creating the brand that they think their audience wants, but they don't ever match who they are into that. And that makes it really difficult. It creates a lot of resistance for yourself. It can be hard to be consistent. And so I'd start with crafting what your message is and knowing your values, because when we know those values, we can connect with people who have similar values as well. So that's the big one. And then the other big piece is making sure that you are consistent and congruent in your strategy. So making sure that you actually develop a marketing strategy that is doable for yourself. Sometimes we set out these big, huge goals and we're just one person and we want to be across every platform all of the time, 24/7, and it fizzles out because we get burnt out or we run out of time. So crafting a strategy that actually you can do consistently and come across with a congruent voice is incredibly important. So those two pieces are key: the message and actually having a strategy for implementing the message, and implementing your strategy consistently and actually measuring the results as well. So those are probably the key elements that you need to attract clients with your brand.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. Strategy is like my favorite word. So strategy, leverage, and monetization, those are my three favorite words. And so I really think it's really important to have a strategy. And a lot of times people think, oh, I just don't know. Well, hire someone. I mean, this is really important. I think that you reach a point in your business where you have to lean in and step up and become the CEO of your company. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that just really means that you really have to have strategy. And if that is not your strong suit, even if you can't afford to hire someone yet to be your marketing director, right? Maybe your business isn't ready for that. But at the very least, hire someone that can help you get that brand right if you don't know how to do it yourself, right? That would be you. And really hire someone to help you with marketing strategy. Hire someone to, it doesn't always mean that you have to have a, 6-month or 1 year commitment if you're not ready for that, because certainly even if you didn't have those things in place, it's really, really important. But I think that strategy is really where people really need to make sure that they invest, because if you're just all over the board and you really don't have a strategy, you're just not going to have the best ROI. So I think strategy is really important. Let's talk about brand loyalty.
All right.
So let's define it first. So for some people, they're like, brand loyalty. And, I think that the visual that comes to everybody's mind when you think about brand loyalty is probably got to be Apple, right? Anybody who can get people to stand outside wrapped around a building and they don't even know what the thing is yet.
Yes.
What it's going to be is really, they've got brand loyalty down, right? And if anybody was going to say, what kind of loyalty would you like to have? Is there anybody that wouldn't want to have not just fans, but raving fans? Kind of define that for us. And then maybe what are a couple ways maybe that people should be thinking about how to build brand loyalty.
Sure. So brand loyalty is really all about increasing the chances of people coming back and being a repeat customer, and also them wanting to help you bring in more customers. So when somebody has brand loyalty, it's almost like that brand becomes a part of that customer's identity in a way. I think you nailed it with the Apple example. Is, in my experience at least, people who have Apple products tend to be incredibly proud of having an Apple product. And they're the people who stand outside those stores for hours and hours just to get the latest device. And they're using all of the services and everything's integrated. So I think brand loyalty is really about creating that really strong relationship so people just want to keep coming back for more and for more. And as for how to really build brand loyalty, I think a lot of times it comes down to the little things that you do. It comes down to how you nurture your relationships with people. So some modern day examples of how people do this are, well, through email marketing, for example, constantly and consistently producing valuable content that helps people with what they need exactly when they need it can create this magical force where they're like, you know what, I need to be working with this person and I need to tell all my friends about it. So one of the biggest ways you can do that is through providing valuable content consistently. There are also really cool little things that you can do, regardless of what stage of business you're in, to really help your clients feel special and cared for. So one service that you can use is, say, send out cards, for example, sending out actual cards to people in the mail when they're having their birthday or it's the anniversary of you working with them, and things of that nature can be a huge added touch that can keep you top of mind and keep people coming back because you went that extra mile. And if you can do it, handwritten cards are great, but if you're a larger company and you're like, I can't sign 10,000 cards, send out cards is a great option as well. So it's really just staying top of mind, and staying top of mind for the right reasons, for providing that value and for helping them feel important in that relationship that you have with them.
Yes, I think there's a lot of different things that you could do. Nurturing is really key. It's key in list building too. It's a good strategy to have in segmentation. And you and I had a conversation about that just the other day. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about brand partners. Like what do you consider a brand partner? Because now we have brand loyalty and now we have brand partners. And I see that you talk about that a lot.
Mm-hmm. So the term brand partner can actually be quite broad. So essentially a brand partner is somebody who is advocating for your brand or working with your brand in some way. It could come across as somebody who you do a joint venture with. So maybe you co-create a new brand or a new product that you can work with on together. Or it might be somebody who promotes your brand. So affiliate relationships and things of that nature too. So if you have a brand partner that likes what you do, you can really promote each other's things. And what I like about brand partners is you can find people who have a similar message or a similar niche, and you can actually combine your brands to create a more powerful message or a more powerful product, and you can create a bigger audience that way too. So really a brand partner is somebody who's helping you grow your brand. And ideally, this would be a reciprocal relationship. You help me, I help you, and it just benefits both brands equally.
I like that. And how would you say that for people who are looking to want to expand and do that and bring in some brand partners or maybe get started with that, how would you say would be a few ways for them to find the best brand partners?
Sure. So first of all, you need to know, again, what your brand is and your message, and you can start reaching out to people that you see a similar message in. So this can happen through good old-fashioned networking is a fantastic way of doing that. Also being a part of other smaller niche communities, say if you're in a mastermind or something of that nature, reaching out to people who are working towards a similar goal is fantastic as well. The important thing is if you're trying to reach out to a brand partner that you've never met in person before, is you need to do your research. You need to make sure that you know everything about that brand partner, that you know what they offer, how they offer it, why they offer it, and what benefits you can provide as a potential brand partner as well. So it's really about understanding that brand on a human level as well, and reaching out as a human being too. Of course, you know, we have to have strategy and we have to have smart business relationships, and we also need to have human connection. So you need to make sure it's a good fit on a human level, on a personality level, on a values level as well.
Perfect. I really love that. What do you think about when you're thinking about brand partners? So I built my business on collaboration and doing joint ventures, and it's the thing that I love the most about my business. And I think that when you collaborate with the right brand partners and with the right people, it just makes doing business easier, more fun, takes less time, less energy, right? And just, you know, different people who think and serve your audience in a different way. It's just a really great way to be able to expand your business. And I love doing a lot of things where I get to meet new people in my space. Mm-hmm. And some of the ways that I do that are when I create joint ventures with people and also when I speak. So as a speaker, I like doing a lot of things where I get to speak with other people. It helps me to know who I may invite on my podcast, who may I invite to write for my magazine, who would I might invite to speak on my stages. So there's a lot of different ways. And one of the ways I find that you're doing that I really like is doing summits. So I think that doing a summit is really a great way, because now you have a multitude of people who are all serving the same audience if it's a themed, and I know you like to do those. Mm-hmm. So how has doing a summit really become a marketing strategy for you? And from a branding point of view, how has it really helped you in your business and can help other people in theirs?
Yes, I love this one so much. So, for example, the summit that I've created is the Authentic Marketing Summit. And what's so fantastic about this is when you can create a summit, it does a few things for your brand and for your business. One thing that it does is it creates those brand partners, because you're reaching out to potential speakers and experts who speak on similar topics, who serve a similar niche, and who have a similar message. And so I found by doing that in my business that I've been able to connect with people who have a very similar target market and message to me, so we can work together to help each other's businesses. So that does save a lot of time and energy and money when you can have people on your side who are growing with you. So that is absolutely huge. The other benefit of creating a summit or some other type of event is that becomes a brand asset for you. So as an entrepreneur creating a summit, you become considered a go-to expert on that particular niche that you've created your event on. It's this incredible thing that happens that when we partner with brands who have a certain reputation or notoriety, the brand that comes into that partnership tends to take on a bit of that reputation just by association as well. So it can be a very powerful positioning tool as well, to, if you really want to have yourself viewed as an expert in a specific niche, by creating something like that that is dedicated to that specific topic. So for example, authentic marketing, it can really help you become known as the person who is the expert in authentic marketing. So it's incredibly powerful for that. And the other huge benefit of creating something like a summit is that it can increase your reach and it can increase your list size. It can help you get new leads in that never would have found you because they've been sitting over here with this expert. And now they have an opportunity to come in and learn about you and learn about all these other different brand partners that are going to be a great fit and also provide tremendous amount of value. So there are lots and lots of benefits of creating some kind of summit or event or just big, fantastic event or something that's related to the niche that you really want to get into. So lots and lots of benefits there. And plus, it's just a lot of fun.
I think so too. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak on yours.
Yes.
I think that there's been a lot of different ways. I mean, I've been in several collaboration books. That was really great. I've done it when you are on a podcast. There's always this opportunity to meet other people and see what they're doing with their audience and be able to find other ways to play together. Mm-hmm. So I love being in a summit or a book, or when this is really about even when you speak on the stage. I always am really excited about meeting the audience, but also about meeting the other speakers too, because there's always other opportunities. And when you find out more about people, you're like, oh, well, I do something similar to that too. Maybe we've played here together, you get to see that, and maybe there's other opportunities to play together too. So whenever you can get more visibility or to expand your business by playing, so to speak, in the sandbox, right, in the JV sandbox with someone else, it's always good for your business too. I just feel like taking your eyes off yourself sometimes and serving others. I really believe if you lead with contribution, compensation follows. So I just really feel like it has really worked for me. I love building my business that way. And I love that you are taking part in that too. So that is really exciting, because the reality really is that when you and I had that conversation about your summit and you shared your vision for it, I immediately knew that what you were talking about for branding would definitely be something my audience needed to hear, which also some of the other people that are speaking on that summit are also going to end up being interviewed on my podcast as well. So we have several people in common, finding out who those other speakers are. So I love that. And I love what you're sharing. And I love that you're actually stepping into it and that you are doing it so authentically. I think it really says a lot. So thank you so much for that. Can you tell my audience how they can connect with you?
Sure. So some of the best ways you can connect with me personally is on social media. So on Facebook or LinkedIn in particular, I'm on there quite often. You can just look for Caitey Gilchrist. And you can also connect with me on my website at caiteygilchrist.com.
And we'll have links to those in the show notes so everybody knows that. So can you tell us two things? So tell us a little bit about the gift that you brought for my audience. That's always really nice when people come bearing gifts. So tell us a little bit about that, what they can kind of expect that to do and how they can get it.
Fantastic. Yes. So my gift for you today is access to my branding masterclass. So this is really a masterclass that dives into every component that you need to get started with a brand that actually attracts your ideal clients. So we cover the exact things that I use in my brand strategy to help bring in more audience members and to become a go-to expert in my niche and things of that nature. And so you can do this too. And so to access that free training, that free masterclass, you can go to caiteygilchrist.com/masterclass, and there's tons and tons of strategy in there. So I really hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. And we'll make sure that we have the link in the show notes to make it easier for you to get that and any information about the other things that Caitey is doing as well. So we really, really love that. So Caitey, here's the portion of the show where we like to call open mic, #OpenMic, kind of like my version of social karaoke. And so what I want to be able to do is our show. This is the Marketing, Media, and Money show. And so we want to make sure that we're talking about what is working now, like not 5 years ago, not 2 years ago, but really what is working now and what strategies you're implementing in your business. And you have been very generous through this whole show of sharing with us what is working for you. And we really love that. So can you share with us your best marketing, media, money strategy? So I'm going to hand off the mic, and thank you so much for sharing.
Awesome. Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is that there's a trend that's been happening over the last few recent years that is going to be continuing, and we've already touched on a little bit, and that is authentic marketing. This tendency for who you are to influence your audience more than what you do. And so my top strategy or tip for you today is to really embrace vulnerability in your branding. So this is really where you take the time to actually dive a little deeper into what your why is behind your business and what's really, really important to you in this world, and actually open that up a little bit for other people to see. So some ways that you can do this are really looking at what's happening in your industry or what's happening within your niche and your audience that maybe gets you really excited and passionate, or maybe that's something that you really want to change in the world, and connect to that and really help people understand why it's important to you. And so be a little vulnerable in your business and be a little vulnerable in your marketing as well. So some ways you can do this are social media. Social media is one of the best ways of sharing a little bit of vulnerability, because that's the whole point of social media, is to be social and build connections, and vulnerability is a great way to do that. And do it through your networking as well. So don't have those regurgitated conversations of what do you do? How long have you been doing that? Take the time to actually share something a little bit more personal. Share something that you're passionate about and excited about, because those are the things people are going to remember. They're not going to remember your whole list of services or all of your packages. They're going to remember that one thing that connects them to you on a human level. And so that is my number one strategy for you, is really to be open to a little bit of vulnerability. And you can start small. You don't have to dive into the deep end of the vulnerability pool, but start even small, sharing a little bit about yourself and see what happens. See what happens when your audience starts responding to that, engaging with it, and seeing what they have to say, because it can also help you learn a lot more about your audience as well. And so get out there, be a little vulnerable, share about yourself, and be authentic in your marketing.
I love that. This is kind of like your own personal market research, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's really powerful. And this can be a part of your strategy, testing a little bit of vulnerability here and there and seeing what the results are. I'll share this too, Patty, is that some of my social media posts that have the highest amount of engagement on them are not the ones where I'm just sharing a tip. It's where I'm sharing something personal and there's a picture of me on it. It's absolutely incredible. And so I encourage all you entrepreneurs listening right now to be a little vulnerable, be a little personal, and try that authentic spin as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Caitey, I really appreciate you showing up on kind of short notice too. I mean, we had our conversation and I was like, oh, we really need to get you on the podcast, because I really felt like what we were talking about was so key. And And I really think that timing is everything. And getting the brand right is so important. It's like what you said, right? Let's do it now and just get it done. I think that's really, really important. So thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for having me, Patty. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited that I got to share today.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience out there for tuning in with us. Thank you for showing up and just being so loyal and listening to the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. Until the next episode, have a wonderful day and week.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.